Every town has its secrets. Some are harmless, forgotten stories whispered at family gatherings. Others are darker, stories so chilling they linger like a shadow, passed down in hushed tones, half believed, half denied. But then, there are stories that feel different. Stories that grip you, stories that refuse to fade. And in the small agricultural town of Wasco, California, there is one such story. A story known today as the Wasco incident. It begins not with violence, not with chaos, but with something deceptively ordinary, a quiet summer evening, a child riding her bicycle down a suburban street. But within minutes, that ordinary night twisted into something terrifying, something no one could explain. What happened in Wasco remains one of Kern County's darkest mysteries. And the deeper you look, the more unsettling it becomes. On a peaceful street, something unthinkable was about to happen. She vanished within minutes, leaving behind only her bicycle.
You're sure this is the right location?
When
Yes, the call
police
came from here.
arrived, the entire neighborhood was on edge. For the family, the unanswered questions became unbearable. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. Subscribe for more true crime stories. To understand the Wasco incident, you must first understand the town itself. Wasco was the kind of place that seemed ordinary on the surface. Rows of tidy houses, small family-owned shops, and acres upon acres of farmland stretching toward the horizon. It was a place where people waved when they drove past, where neighbors knew each other's names, where children played in the streets until the streetlights blinked on. It was safe. Or, at least, it was supposed to be. But behind the familiarity of small-town life, fear was already beginning to take root. You see, by the time of the disappearance, Wasco was already on edge. Just months earlier, bizarre reports had shaken the community. People claimed they had seen something strange wandering the streets at night. Not a criminal, not an intruder, but a clown. A clown with a painted face, holding balloons, standing in the shadows of Wasco. At first, people laughed it off. They called it a prank, a social media stunt. But as the sightings spread, laughter turned to unease. Parents pulled their children inside earlier, people double-locked their doors. Because behind every sighting was the same disturbing detail. The clown never spoke. The clown never moved. The clown only stared. And then, without warning, the clown disappeared. The sightings stopped. The town began to breathe again. Life seemed to return to normal. Until the night of the incident. It was a warm summer evening, the kind that feels endless. Children were playing tag, bicycles racing up and down sidewalks, sprinklers hissing across front lawns. In one house, a little girl begged her mother for just a few more minutes of play. She wanted to ride her bike one last time before bedtime. The mother agreed, as mothers often do, telling her, "Don't go far. Stay close." And so the child rode out into the twilight. Her small figure disappeared around the corner, the sound of her bicycle wheels fading into the evening air. Minutes passed. The sky grew darker. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass. The mother called out for her daughter. No answer. She called again. Still no answer. At first, she wasn't worried. Children often lost track of time, caught up in their games. But soon, unease crept in. She walked to the sidewalk, looked down the street. That's when she saw it. The bicycle. Lying in the grass, its wheel slowly spinning. But the little girl was nowhere in sight. In that instant, dread flooded her veins. She shouted her daughter's name louder, her voice cutting through the stillness of the street. Neighbors turned on porch lights. Some stepped outside, confused by the panic. And when they saw the bicycle, their faces changed. Within minutes, the entire block was searching. Flashlights bobbing in the dark, voices echoing through alleyways and backyards. They checked garages, fields, drainage ditches. Every shadow became a threat. Every silence, unbearable. But there was no trace. No footsteps in the dirt. No broken branches. No sound of struggle. It was as if the child had vanished into thin air. By 9 p.m., the father was behind the wheel, circling streets desperately. By 9:15, someone dialed 911. By 10 o'clock, red and blue lights painted the neighborhood. Police officers taped off the street, their radios crackling into the warm summer air. And all the while, that bicycle sat in the grass. A small, ordinary object, transformed into the most chilling piece of evidence the town of Wasco had ever seen. For investigators, the scene was baffling. There were no drag marks. No overturned soil. No screams reported. Nothing stolen. It was as though the child had been plucked straight from the world, gone, without a trace. And in cases like these, the first 24 hours are everything. For the police in Wasco, the clock had already begun to tick. The first officers on the scene began with the basics. Who had seen the girl last? What time did she leave the house? Had she argued with anyone? Did she have a favorite hiding spot? Her parents answered quickly, desperately, their voices trembling. She had never run away before. She wasn't the kind of child to wander far. And she had been gone less than half an hour. That, in itself, was terrifying. Because it meant that whoever, or whatever, had taken her, had acted fast. Within hours, the Wasco Police Department requested assistance from Kern County Sheriff's Office. More patrol cars rolled in. Crime scene tape extended further around the block. Officers went door to door, knocking on homes, interviewing neighbors one by one. Most said the same thing. They hadn't seen her. They hadn't heard a thing. And nothing had seemed unusual until the flashing lights appeared outside their windows. But there was one detail. Small. Easy to overlook. A neighbor 2 doors down said they had noticed a car parked on the corner earlier that evening. A dark sedan, idling with its headlights off. When asked to describe it, the neighbor hesitated. They weren't sure of the make or model. They couldn't see the plates. All they remembered was the faint glow of a cigarette, burning inside the car. By the time officers checked, the vehicle was gone. Meanwhile, search teams fanned out across Wasco. Volunteers combed fields with flashlights. deputies searched drainage canals. Helicopters scanned the farmland with spotlights. But the night gave them nothing. By morning, the story had already spread. Local news vans arrived, cameras rolling, microphones shoved in the faces of shaken neighbors. Reporters described it as a sudden and unexplained disappearance. Parents clutched their children tighter. Doors were bolted. Curfews were set. Wasco was no longer the town it had been the day before. And soon, whispers began. Some blamed outsiders, transient workers who traveled through Kern County's farms. Others suspected the notorious Wasco clown. Rumors spread faster than facts, each one adding fuel to the fire of fear. Behind the scenes, detectives worked tirelessly. They created a timeline of the girl's final known movements. They interviewed the family, friends, teachers, anyone who might know if she had enemies. But they found nothing. She was loved. She was happy. There was no motive for her to vanish. That left only one conclusion. This was an abduction. And abductions leave predators behind. Investigators began to focus on sex offender registries, cross-checking addresses near the neighborhood. They looked into parolees recently released in Kern County. They even examined carnival workers who had passed through the town weeks earlier. But once again, the leads ran cold. It was as though the kidnapper had melted into the night. And then, days later, a chilling development. A woman living several blocks away reported that on the night of the disappearance, she had heard something unusual. A faint knock at her door, sometime past midnight. When she checked, no one was there. But her security light flicked on, and in that brief moment, she swore she saw movement. A figure standing at the edge of her yard. Tall. Thin. Motionless. She turned to call her husband. When she looked back, the figure was gone. Detectives pressed her for details. Was it a man? A woman? Could she describe clothing? Her answer made their blood run cold. She said it looked like a clown. The Wasco clown. The urban legend that had haunted the town months earlier. The figure residents had dismissed as a prank. Was it possible that this wasn't a prank at all? Could the clown have escalated, watching children, following families, and finally, taking one? Police refused to speculate publicly. They released no statements about clowns, no confirmation of the witness's account. But privately, officers couldn't ignore it. Because the timing was too perfect. The clown sightings had ended abruptly. And almost immediately afterward, the girl disappeared. Fear turned to paranoia. Every shadow seemed to hold a figure. Every late-night knock at the door sparked panic. Residents flooded the station with calls, reporting strangers, reporting noises, reporting shapes in the dark. Most were nothing. False alarms. Tricks of the mind. But one night, a family living on the outskirts of town called in something different. They claimed a man in a mask had walked across their property line, carrying balloons. By the time deputies arrived, the man was gone. Only the balloons remained, caught in the branches of a tree. And tied to one of those balloons was a note. A note that read, "You'll never find her." For investigators, this changed everything. The case was no longer just about a missing child. It was about a predator taunting the police. And whoever they were, they wanted attention. The balloon note was a turning point. Until that moment, investigators had hoped, however faintly, that the girl might have wandered off, that she might still be alive, hidden, waiting to be found. But the note shattered that fragile hope. It was short, cruel, mocking. "You'll never find her." The handwriting was jagged, scrawled as though written in haste. Detectives rushed it to the crime lab. But no usable fingerprints were found. The paper itself was ordinary, the kind you'd find in any school notebook. Still, the message was clear. This wasn't just about one child. This was about power, control, fear. The abductor wanted the town to know he was watching. Detectives pulled every resource they had. They consulted handwriting experts. They checked recent purchases of balloons from local shops. They even traced security footage from convenience stores in the area. But there was no match. No face. The investigation widened. Suspects emerged. One was a farmhand, known to drift between seasonal jobs. He had been seen near the neighborhood weeks earlier. Rumors spread quickly, fueled by fear. Some claimed he had spoken to children at the park. Others swore they had seen him staring too long at schoolyards. But when deputies tracked him down, he had an alibi. He was miles away the night of the disappearance. Another suspect was a man who lived alone in a dilapidated trailer on the edge of town. Reclusive, eccentric, often seen wandering at odd hours. When police searched his property, they found clown masks, several of them. For the community, it seemed like the answer they had been waiting for. But the masks were old, dusty, forgotten in a storage box for years. And once again, the trail went cold. Meanwhile, the girl's family was living a nightmare. They appeared on television, pleading for her safe return. They offered rewards. They begged whoever had her to bring her back alive. But behind the cameras, grief consumed them. Every knock at the door brought a surge of hope, followed by crushing disappointment. Every phone call from detectives was a knife twist of anticipation, only to end in the same refrain: no news. For the mother, the worst part was the bicycle. She couldn't bear to look at it, yet she couldn't throw it away. It sat in the garage, untouched. A silent reminder of the night her life changed forever. The town of Wasco began to unravel. Rumors turned to accusations. Neighbors eyed each other with suspicion. Parents forbade their children from playing outside. Stores sold out of locks, alarms, even firearms. And through it all, the legend of the Wasco clown grew darker. Some insisted the clown was real, that he had been stalking the town for years, waiting for the perfect moment. Others dismissed it, saying the community was grasping for answers, turning an internet hoax into a scapegoat. But every time someone spotted a balloon tied to a fence post, every time a shadow lingered too long at the corner of a street light, the whispers returned. The clown is back. In the weeks that followed, false leads consumed investigators. A child's shoe discovered near the train tracks, unrelated. A tip about a white van seen near the park, unfounded. A letter sent to the local paper claiming responsibility, proven a hoax. Each dead end drained resources, eroded morale, and worsened the family's anguish. And then, something strange happened. Reports began to surface in neighboring towns. Not of disappearances, but of sightings. Strange figures at night. Balloons tied to porches. Silent clowns watching from fields. Was it the same predator? A copycat? Or was the panic itself spreading, feeding on fear? For investigators, the lines blurred. Which leads were real? Which were hysteria? And most terrifying of all, if the perpetrator was still out there, what would he do next? As weeks turned into months, investigators faced a devastating reality. The trail was growing colder. In missing persons cases, time is the greatest enemy. Within the first 48 hours, chances of recovery plummet. After a week, hope dwindles. After a month, the case becomes a haunting shadow, often never resolved. But this case was different, because the perpetrator refused to disappear. He wanted attention. He wanted control. And he wanted the town to suffer. Late one evening, the sheriff's office received an envelope. No return address. No postage. It had been hand-delivered to the station doors. Inside, there was a single photograph. A blurry image of what appeared to be a child's bedroom. The bed was neatly made, a stuffed animal resting on the pillow. But in the corner of the room, a balloon floated. Red. Helium-filled. Attached to the balloon string was a note. The same handwriting. The same jagged scrawl. It read, "She sleeps safe with me." Detectives froze. Was this proof she was alive? Or another cruel game? The photo offered no clues. The room could have been anywhere. There were no fingerprints, no metadata, no landmarks. Just the image, in the balloon. FBI profilers were brought in. They studied the notes, the patterns, the behavior. Their conclusion was chilling. The perpetrator was organized. Intelligent. He thrived on fear, not just of the victim, but of the entire community. And most telling of all, he wanted to be seen. This wasn't someone who would vanish quietly into the night. This was someone who would keep taunting, keep playing, until he got what he wanted. But what did he want? For some, the answer was power. The thrill of control. For others, it was notoriety, fame through infamy, turning a crime into a twisted legend. And then there were those who whispered darker theories. That the Wasco incident was never about one child. That she was only the beginning. Across town, fear reached a breaking point. Children no longer played outside. Parents escorted them to school, waiting at the gates until the final bell rang. Local businesses struggled. Families moved away. Houses sat empty, unsold. And always, the clown rumors persisted. Some claimed they saw him standing at the edge of fields. Others swore he walked the canal paths at dusk, his figure silhouetted by the setting sun. A truck driver passing through at 3 a.m. reported a man in a clown mask standing on the shoulder of the highway, holding a balloon. When deputies searched the area, there was nothing. But in a nearby ditch, they found another note. "She likes the dark." Detectives doubled their efforts. They launched undercover patrols. They planted decoy vehicles. They even staged sting operations, hoping to lure the perpetrator into revealing himself. But each time, they came up empty-handed. The more they searched, the more it felt like he was always one step ahead. Some began to wonder, was he among them? A neighbor, a coworker, a familiar face hiding in plain sight? The thought chilled them. Because if true, it meant he wasn't just taunting the police. He was walking freely among the very people he terrorized. By now, theories flooded the community. Some believed the Wasco clown was real, a sadistic predator who had escalated from pranks to abduction. Others insisted it was a group, not one person. A cult, perhaps, using fear as ritual. Still others whispered conspiracies. That the girl had been taken not by a clown, but by someone with influence, someone the authorities were protecting. Each theory carried its own weight. Each theory divided the town further. And through it all, the family endured. Their grief became public, broadcast on news stations, dissected by strangers. Every day without answers was another wound. And every note, every balloon, every whisper of the clown, twisted the knife deeper. The Wasco incident was no longer just a case. It was a curse. A story that spread beyond Kern County, beyond California, drawing attention from across the nation. Because people weren't just asking what happened to the girl. They were asking, who'll be next? As autumn crept into Wasco, the air grew colder, but the case burned hotter than ever. It had been months since the girl vanished, yet the town was still trapped in the same cycle, whispers of the clown, sleepless nights, and a constant, gnawing fear. The sheriff's office was exhausted. Detectives rotated shifts, some working around the clock, chasing tips that went nowhere. Morale was collapsing. Resources were thinning. And the community was losing patience. Some accused law enforcement of incompetence. Others believed the authorities were hiding the truth. Rumors swirled that they knew who the clown was, but couldn't catch him, or worse, wouldn't. The taunts continued. A balloon left outside the sheriff's substation. A crayon drawing of a clown mailed to the girls' school. A note slipped under the church doors during Sunday Mass. Each one was designed to humiliate investigators, to remind the town that the predator was still in control. And then, one night, the most chilling taunt yet. A local news station received a VHS tape. The label read only, "Play me." Inside was a 2-minute clip. The footage was grainy, distorted. At first, it showed nothing more than a dark room. A faint creak of floorboards. Then, slowly, a figure stepped into frame. A clown. The mask was pale, the smile painted wide. In its hand, it held a balloon. The figure raised the balloon toward the camera, then let it go. As it floated upward, the camera tilted. And for a split second, just before the tape cut to static, something else came into view. A small hand. And a child's bracelet. The tape was rushed to the FBI. Analysts dissected every frame, hunting for clues. But the room was too dark. The audio too distorted. The background revealed nothing. It was a performance, a carefully crafted piece of terror. And it worked. Wasco was paralyzed. Children refused to sleep alone. Parents checked closets, locked windows, left lights burning all night. The incident was no longer just a case, it was psychological warfare. As winter approached, investigators faced a grim truth. They had no suspect, no solid leads, no body. And yet, the clown continued to haunt them. Some believed he had left town, moving on to another hunting ground. Others feared he was still there, blending into the community, waiting to strike again. Every knock at the door was terrifying. Every balloon in sight, at a birthday party, in a store window, floating on the breeze, was a cruel reminder. The family clung to hope, but it was fragile, fraying with each passing day. And the town of Wasco was unraveling. Neighbors no longer trusted one another. Friendships dissolved. Businesses closed. Even the church pews grew empty, as faith itself seemed to fade under the weight of the unknown. The Wasco incident was no longer just about one missing child. It was about a community consumed by fear. A fear so deep, it felt as though the clown wasn't just outside their doors. He was inside their minds. And then, just when the case seemed destined to go cold forever, a discovery was made. One that would shake the investigation to its core, and reopen every wound the town had tried so hard to bury. Winter was setting in. The case had grown cold, and so had the hearts of many in Wasco. Hope was fading, until a hunter made a startling discovery on the outskirts of town. Deep in an abandoned orchard, half buried under layers of dead leaves, he found something unusual, a small backpack. Faded, weathered, but unmistakable. It belonged to the missing girl. Inside were fragments of her world, a cracked plastic hairbrush, a notebook with doodles, and one single sneaker. The orchard was immediately swarmed by investigators. Search dogs combed the area. Drones hovered overhead. Detectives hoped for remains, a trace of DNA, something. But the orchard revealed only silence. It was as though the backpack had been placed there on purpose, a breadcrumb meant to taunt, not to solve. Forensic teams scoured every inch. They found a few partial footprints in the mud, but the rain had distorted them. And on the backpack zipper, they found one long fiber. Synthetic. Bright red. It matched the material used for balloons. This discovery reignited the town's terror. The clown had left a calling card. But was it recent? Or had the backpack been waiting there all along? The sheriff's office went public, announcing the find. They urged calm, promised answers, swore they were closer than ever. But behind closed doors, detectives were divided. Some believed the clown was escalating, ready to strike again. Others feared something worse. That he had already struck again, and nobody had noticed. More sightings poured in. A balloon tied to a swing set. A shadowy figure near the school playground. But every lead ended the same way, nothing. Until one night, nearly a year after the girl first vanished, an officer on patrol made a chilling call over the radio. He had spotted a lone figure on the edge of town. dressed in black, holding balloons. The officer gave chase. Sirens screamed. Backup units raced across Wasco. But when they reached the spot, the figure was gone. All that remained were 3 balloons tied to a fence post. And beneath them, taped to the wood, was a photograph. A Polaroid of the missing girl. Experts analyzed the photo. It was impossible to date. But the girl looked older, alive, and terrified. This revelation shattered the town all over again. If the photo was real, it meant she was still out there, still in the clown's grasp. But the FBI warned the image could be staged, manipulated. A cruel trick to prolong the nightmare. To this day, no one knows for certain. The photograph vanished into evidence, sealed away. And the Wasco incident remains unresolved. Years have passed, yet the questions linger. Was the girl ever alive after that first night? Was the clown a single man, or something larger, a specter woven into the fabric of Wasco itself? Some say the figure still appears, on lonely roads, near empty fields, always watching, always waiting. Others believe the entire town was cursed, and the clown was never a man at all. But one truth endures. No one is safe when the clown comes to town. And the mystery is far from over.